Is the new Chevy Equinox EV the best affordable electric SUV? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. For as long as they've been around, one of the biggest barriers to EV ownership has been the unaffordable pricing. Well, good news, things seem to finally be changing slowly. With the EV market slowing down just a little bit, prices are slowly coming down, and the new Chevy Equinox EV seems to be proof of that. What we have here is a typical family-sized SUV, similar in size to a Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V, or even a gas-powered Chevrolet Equinox. Only it happens to be electric and have pricing that's pretty competitive with the gas-powered and hybrid-powered alternatives. In the US, the Equinox EV has a starting price of around $35,000 US, and because it qualifies for the point of sale tax credit of $7,500, that means you can get into one of these for around $28,000 plus tax, and that's before you apply any local state incentives. The pricing, however, is not quite as attractive up north in Canada, where the Equinox EV starts around 45,000 Canadian, and after the federal $5,000 rebate, you can get it in the low $40,000 range, which makes it roughly around $5,000 more expensive than a comparable gas-powered SUV like the RAV4, the CR-V, or the Equinox. But even so, when you compare it against similar electric SUVs, like say the sales leader Tesla Model Y, the Equinox EV is around $10,000 to $15,000 less expensive, so it is pretty aggressively priced. Now, I'll come back to that pricing and the deals that you can get a little bit later in the video, but for now, what exactly do you get for that price? Well, as mentioned, the Equinox EV is a proper family-sized SUV, and it even has pretty impressive performance. In terms of driving range, the base front-wheel drive versions have a driving range of up to around 319 miles or 513 kilometers. But if you go for all-wheel drive with the second electric motor, that range does drop to up to 285 miles or 460 kilometers. Either way, that driving range is competitive with other EVs, making this a very usable vehicle. Now, it is worth mentioning that if you get the front-wheel drive version, even though you have more range, it only produces 220 horsepower, whereas with all-wheel drive, because of the second electric motor, you get 300 horsepower, which does make a difference. Even though having the extra power would be nice, even so, this front-wheel drive model that I'm testing right now still feels more than adequate. It feels like it could easily keep up with other similar-sized gas power SUVs, and you still get that instant torque when you put your foot down like you get with all other EVs. Now, while on the topic of driving range, let's talk more about the battery platform that GM uses, and any potential reliability concerns. So the Equinox EV has an 85 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery, and it's built on GM's latest Ultium battery platform, which underpins all their new electric vehicles, from the Equinox EV to the larger Blazer EV, the Cadillac Lyriq, and a few other models as well. Essentially, all these vehicles have the exact same electric vehicle architecture and modular batteries, which GM basically just scales up or down depending on the vehicle. Now, there are some pros and cons to GM strategy. On the pro side, I really like that General Motors is basically using the exact same parts and technology across the entire lineup, so that should make servicing theoretically a lot more straightforward. And I also really like that they have module style batteries, so there should never be a point where you will ever need to replace the entire battery pack in the EV. If there's any kind of defect anywhere in the battery, theoretically, you should be able to just replace the module that's affected. So that should make costs a lot lower. And not only that, but GM claims that their battery modules, which have pouch-style battery cells, are potentially upgradable over time. So if battery technology improves in the future, you could theoretically upgrade the modules to whatever the latest technology is, which would be a pretty neat idea. It is definitely a very clever and advanced battery platform that GM has. Now, on the downside, there have been some teething issues along the way with rolling out the latest electric vehicles. The most notable example of that is the Blazer EV, which is the slightly larger SUV to the Equinox EV. When that vehicle launched, it had a lot of issues, mostly software related, to the point where GM had to stop selling them and recall all the vehicles to sort out all the problems, which they eventually did. Now, thankfully, General Motors hasn't had any issues with the Equinox EV so far. They seem to have sorted out most of those early teething issues, but of course, time will tell. So what exactly is the Equinox EV like to drive? Well, it feels more or less like almost any other electric vehicle, really. Of course, it's extremely smooth, extremely quiet, which is exactly what you would expect from an EV. It has really nice torque. The ride quality is actually quite smooth and nice, and it has pretty decent handling. For anyone that's already very used to electric vehicles, it's going to be pretty unremarkable. But if this is your first EV experience, well, compared to a traditional gas vehicle, this is probably going to really impress you. It is a very nice driving SUV, although one complaint I do have is the wheel sizes that GM decided to go with. The standard wheel size are 19-inch wheels, and on the higher trims, you get very large 21-inch wheels. I have no idea why you would need wheels that big on a regular SUV like this. It's only going to make tire replacement a lot more expensive, and because the tires are so thin, it does impact the ride quality. So if it were me buying this vehicle, I would definitely stick with the base 19-inch wheels on the lower trims, which, by the way, also give you a little bit more driving range. Now let's get into the interior, which is another highlight of this vehicle. The technology is definitely going to be a standout feature. You have this extra large 17-inch touchscreen, which comes standard on every single trim, and you have a digital display behind the steering wheel as well. On the plus side, the touchscreen does have a very good user interface. It's extremely responsive, very quick, the graphics look great, and the user experience is very good because it does have a Google-based interface, which means you have all of your Google apps built right in, including the Google Play Store, your music, and Google Maps. The only downside to it for some is that GM no longer gives you smartphone mirroring capability using Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. You have to use the Google interface that it comes with, and that's it. As far as I'm concerned though, that's not really a huge downside because GM did do a good job with the technology in this vehicle. Another highlight is the safety features. You get a wide range of active safety technology, and even available as an option is GM's Super Cruise Control, which gives you self-driving capability on the highway. A very good feature, it works extremely well. That being said, it's not necessarily a must-have option. In fact, I think the real value with the Equinox EV is just getting one of the lower trims, which have plenty of standard features at a much more attractive price. As far as interior space goes, as mentioned, this vehicle is very similar in size to other similar compact SUVs. It is a little bit larger overall than a comparable CR-V, RAV4, or gas-powered Equinox, but the interior space is more or less the same. Cargo space, a little bit on the tighter side, but it is still very comparable. Of course, if you really need to have extra space, that's what the Chevy Blazer EV is for. It's basically the exact same vehicle, many similarities to the Equinox EV, only it's a little bit larger, with more interior space and a lot more cargo space. So, with all that said, is the Chevy Equinox EV a good SUV to buy? Well, there's no question about it. This is a very competitive and a compelling SUV. It's well designed. It drives extremely well, has good performance and driving range. The technology is impressive, and the pricing is pretty aggressive. It seems to have a lot going for it. Now, I don't think that this is a perfect vehicle for everyone. I think for many consumers, a regular hybrid or perhaps a plug-in hybrid is going to be a much better alternative. But if you're someone who's ready to go fully electric and you're able to charge it at home where rates are reasonable, this is a pretty compelling option. My major concerns with it would be, number one, being a brand new GM vehicle on the Ultium platform, given that GM has had issues with this platform with the Blazer EV, I would probably want to take a wait and see approach, at least for the first year, until GM has fully sorted all the issues, just to prevent headaches in the future. And I think waiting is also a good idea because EV prices seem to continue to be coming down and there's more and more compelling deals available out there. In fact, because so many automakers are now so aggressive in trying to move EVs, you can find some pretty incredible deals, especially lease deals, where many popular electric vehicles can now be leased for around $300 to $400 per month in the parts of the US, which is pretty attractive. And I think leasing is really where it's at for electric vehicles. Not only do you get to take advantage of all the incentives and rebates and get a very low payment, but with leasing, you don't have to be worried about any long-term concerns, repairs out of warranty, and you also don't have to worry about depreciation, which is another negative with a lot of EVs. And I think as time goes on, because this is an attractively priced vehicle, you should see some really aggressive lease deals available in the future. And if that's the case, I think this is going to be a really good choice for an EV buyer. So what do you think? If you're someone who's ready to make the jump into a plug-in electric vehicle, is the Equinox EV a compelling option for you? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also watch my other videos by clicking these links over here. Make sure to follow me on Instagram. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcan.com. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.